Welcome to the Crawcast. I'm your host, George Krawczak, and there is quite a few controversies in the NFL awards this year. And so, what I'm going to do is kind of break them down and explain them to you, and whether I agree with it or disagree with it. If you like this type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money. And so, let's get started. So, first off, this is Sam Monson. He is a commentator on the 33rd team, works for the 33rd team and the Check the Mic podcast. I saw he's been getting a lot of hate recently because he was the only person that didn't have Jaden Daniels ranked number one in his Offensive Rookie of the Year rankings, and instead in his vote, and he voted for Brock Bowers instead. So I'm going to break down if that was maybe a correct vote, an incorrect vote, and just say, because I think it's a little bit bigger of a debate than just, oh, obviously Jaden Daniels should have won at 100%. So this is Brock Bowers, the Raiders tight end. Um, in his rookie season, he had 112 receptions, which ranked him third in the NFL and first among tight ends. He had 1,194 yards, which ranked him eighth in the NFL and first among tight ends. And in touchdowns, he had 5, which ranked him 50th in the NFL and 7th among tight ends. And then Jane Daniels, he had 3,568 passing yards, which ranked him 16th in the NFL. He had 25 passing touchdowns, which ranked him 10th in the NFL. And he had 9 interceptions, which ranked him 19th in the NFL, meaning he threw like the 19th most interceptions, if that makes sense. And so I get it. Jane Daniels is a quarterback, and also keep in mind these awards are voted on before the playoffs, so the playoffs do not count. And so Jane Daniels, I think in terms of having a quarterback season, it was an average season, maybe slightly below average, but I'd say it was probably about an average season. And yes, he does get a lot of credit for being a rookie and having an average season because that's really hard for a lot of rookies to do. And being just an average, rookie or being an average quarterback for a rookie is really, really great in terms of NFL standards. But Brock Bowers, you have to keep in mind, had one of the most historic all-time great rookie seasons for a tight end and in tight ends in general. So, like I pointed this out in the most important categories, Brock Bowers was first among his position group in receptions, first among his position group in yards, and seventh among his position group in touchdowns. And then he was third in the entire NFL in receptions, eighth in the entire NFL in yards, and tied for 50th in the entire NFL in touchdowns. Whereas the important stats of the quarterback position group for Jay and Daniels, he's 16th in yards, 10th in touchdowns, and then 19th in interceptions. So, and also if interceptions, first is the best, 32 is the worst. I just kind of want to make that clear. So I think that there's actually a really good argument that Brock Bowers should have won Offensive Rookie of the Year, and I definitely think it's a much closer race than Jaden Daniels. The only debate about it is really how much should a quarterback get preference over just a standard position like a running back or a tight end or a receiver? Because we all know, like for example, like with MVP, quarterback is valued higher than all the other position groups. So I do think Brock Bowers, if it was just like a fair, even tight end quarterback, if we're kind of looking at them as equals, I think it probably should go to Brock Bowers. But the question is how much of a bump should Jane Daniels get because he's a quarterback? So this one, I do think there should be at least a little bit more of a debate. I don't think it's 100% should have gone to Jane Daniels, and he should have been the clear and obvious choice. The next one is the MVP conversation, and it's between Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. If you want me to break down their statistics, I already did that in a previous video of who should win MVP, and you can check that out. So in this conversation, Lamar Jackson is better statistically than Josh Allen in almost every single category. He was simply just better statistically. So I think that we should look at statistics, and MVP should be one of those where we kind of say who has the best statistics and kind of judge them on that. For example, last year, I did not think Lamar Jackson should have won. I thought it should have been Josh Allen or Dak Prescott last year. So why did Josh Allen win it over Lamar Jackson? I think this is a mistake in the sense that I think Lamar Jackson should have won it. But the reason why Josh Allen won it over Lamar Jackson is because we are talking about an MVP of the team. Everyone has their own different standard of what an MVP is, but you have to look at the teams. If Josh Allen was basically the Buffalo Bills, he did have a good offensive line, but he basically had no defense. His defense was terrible, and then he really didn't have that many weapons, and he really didn't have a good running back. And so Josh Allen, where if he had a good game, the Bills would win. And if he had a terrible game, I think the Bills would lose. And I think the perfect example of that was against Detroit, where he won, I think it was like 52 to 45. I can't remember the exact score, but it was like he was on fire that game, and his defense just gave up so many points. And so Josh Allen was the Buffalo Bills. If he was playing well, they won. If he was playing terrible, they lost. Whereas Lamar Jackson, even though I think he did have a better season than Josh Allen and overall was better, he was not really the sole focus on the Ravens. Like for example, when Lamar Jackson was having a bad game, Derrick Henry could bail him out, or the Ravens defense could bail him out. He had other factors of winning as a team, as a whole, as opposed to just leaning on Lamar and saying, okay, if Lamar plays well, we win. If Lamar plays poorly, we lose. Lamar Jackson could afford to have a bad game because there was other pieces around him, whereas Josh Allen really didn't have the same other pieces. So that is my thoughts on it. Why Josh Allen won. I still think it should have gone to Lamar Jackson because again, I think we should try to be at least objective and try to say who has the best statistics. But that's the issue with a lot of these awards is everyone has their own standard on what should be what, and it's hard to pinpoint on what exactly the standard of what is, the MVP and what's not an MVP. The final controversy is Coach of the Year. A lot of people saying Detroit Lions head coach Dan Campbell should have won it over Minnesota Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell. The reason why that is Dan Campbell had one more win than Kevin O'Connell, and Dan Campbell had beaten Kevin O'Connell twice in the regular season. So the thing about Coach of the Year is that it's not actually about who is necessarily the best coach or who has the best record. It's kind of like who faced the most adversity and who kind of overcame the expectations. Whereas the Lions are always expected to be good. They're one game away from the Super Bowl last year, and so everyone always expected them to be one of the top teams in the NFL. Whereas the Vikings, even though I did predict they'd be good with Sam Darnold, a lot of people didn't. A lot of people expected them to miss the playoffs or just be average. And all of a sudden, they're one of the best teams in the NFL under Kevin O'Connell. So that is the reason why, is because Dan Campbell met expectations, probably maybe succeeded them a little bit, whereas Kevin O'Connell really exceeded expectations. And, it's kind of like an adversity award where it's like last year, who was it? Kevin Stefanski won it, and that's because he made the playoffs of four different quarterbacks. It's kind of like that, and who overcame the most obstacles. Whereas Dan Campbell felt like, yeah, the defense got pretty injured, but overall it felt like he didn't really have a lot of obstacles, especially on offense, and that's kind of how it is mostly, where everyone looks at the offense and not really the defense, as in who has to overcome a quarterback or who has to overcome it's usually quarterback injuries, stuff like that, and who's overcoming expectations. So that is me breaking, and so I think that's probably the correct decision in giving it to Kevin O'Connell. So that's me breaking down the controversies on what happened in the NFL awards tonight. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you like the type of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button like it owes you money, and I'll see you on the next one.